Good morning. Apologies. 5 minutes late. I was fighting with my internet. This is the same old story we have over here in Zambia. It's almost depressing. My internet this, my network that. But it's really not an excuse. It's like real. We really do struggle with the network at the moment. Recently, it has just gone to record level bad. Like the service quality is, I'm not exaggerating when I say pathetic. So if you're hosting a live event, it's a nightmare. And I mean, for people like myself, I know why that's so. It is because of the challenge with power. This power challenge, we are on 6 hours of power and 18 hours of no power. So that's hard. And for these, for Infratel that runs the towers, they have to keep those on with the diesel and the batteries and whatever. And it's been very difficult for them. So you notice the quality of the internet, the quality of calls has been horrendous. And of course, no one's saying much about it. I mean, people have complained to high heaven, but nothing is happening because that's the reality. I'm aware that it's a power thing. So that's what's affected the quality of our networks. And so even for us who are online, we really do suffer. I do a lot of online training, and there are times when I get booted out of my own meetings, and it's quite bad to have to keep going out and coming back in, sorry, and going out again, coming back in, sorry. And I have all the network providers, like all of them, just for precisely that reason. And all of them are like, you get your bundles in there and you're hoping that it will work, and well, there you go. Anyway, so today we're here, and today I am going to be walking you guys through the 5, in fact, today will be the first, the next week the second, and the other week the third, just like that. And this is in relation to the neuropsychology therapy webinar I did 2 weeks ago, which was absolutely a resounding success. I was very happy with the turnout and with what people were able to go through. And now we're going into the next stage with those individuals, which is therapy itself. Many of them are very excited about being part of that. And so what I'm going to do in these 30 minutes that we normally have here, I will take you through just a summary of each one of the 5 days, just to help you kind of understand what we were learning. Now, before I do that, know that we, as the 8 a.m. Mentorship Academy, free Mentorship Academy, come through every day, Monday to Friday. Today is yours truly. Tomorrow is Dr. Sunshine with her Mindset Change program. Wednesday, we have Sampa with the Mompreneur. Thursday, we have Dr. Nelly with Prosperity for Your Soul. Friday, we have New Image with Healthy Tips. So these are the 5 days that we cover. We're here all the time. And those who really are seeking help and mentorship, that's where you start from. Now, today, I want to rush straight into the neuropsychology therapy webinar we had. And we're starting with the first topic, which you see there on your screen. Where is it? Right there, that one. That's right. So rewire your mind, the hidden framework behind your outcomes. And in the webinar, I will be posting the link where you can actually purchase and get on it directly. I mean, we've got the full 5 days going at 1,500 kwacha, but if you want to access individual classes, you can access them at 350 kwacha each. So go there and you will be able to access. I will post the link afterwards so that you're able to do so, whether you want to go for one or you want to go for all. But they're 2 hours long, and when you're done with the 5, it will help you get into the right frame of mind for neurotherapy. Now let's go into rewiring your mind, the hidden framework behind your outcomes. So why do we sometimes sabotage our own progress, even when we know better? Why do good intentions crumble under pressure, and why does change feel so elusive? So a lot of people out there have been talking about wanting to make the change. In fact, right now we're in going into October just now. The year is literally done. We'll be getting into the new year. People will do the resolutions. People will go for the overnights. People will have the new declarations for the year and all that jazz. And every time the year starts, people are very optimistic about making the year different. This year, that's the song. But then what happens? Why is it that when we get to the end of the year and you do a mini survey, you discover that over 90% of people, 90 to 95% of people don't even achieve what they wanted, what they set off to do? Why do these things not happen? Well, there you go. So this transformative webinar, which you can access, uncovers the invisible architecture of your mind and behavior, revealing how your brain's wiring influences everything from your decisions to your destiny. So let me walk you through a bit of those, but remember you can access over 2 hours of deep content about this. So the first one is something we call the ABR. Now, in the ABR, it is what we call the model of life. And a lot of people don't understand what this model of life is. Take the image of an iceberg, or take the image of grass in the ground. What you have on top is the actual grass. But when you go deep, you discover that about 80% is underground. So if you take the whole grass stem, 80% is roots that sit underground and 20% is the grass that you see on top. In an ironic kind of way, that's what happens with all of us. Our attitudes, and attitudes, by the way, are formed by your thoughts and your emotions. So these two, your thoughts and emotions, they are the hidden underground roots that determine what the grass looks like. And your grass is your behavior. What kind of behavior do you have? So we always tell people that behavior is symptom of deeper underlying issues. Every time you see any kind of behavior, it's very easy. People usually take it that the behavior is a character trait. I say, no, it's not a character trait. Behavior is a symptom of underlying deeper issues. And in this case, what's the underlying deeper issue? The attitude. So if I were to do a circle, if I were to do a pie chart, I would put about 80% of the exhibited behavior being caused by the attitude. So the attitude is 80%, and then the behavior is 10%, and the results is 10%. So there you go. And so the results, imagine results are 10%, but of that 10%, 10% is coming from behavior and 80% is coming from the attitude. So no wonder they say, the English saying, attitude determines altitude. How you behave, how you take things will have a big impact on what goes on to happen in your lives. There's a law called the law of correspondence that states, as is on the inside, so is on the outside. So everything you see on the outside corresponds with what's going on the inside. And I think Dr. Sunshine has her six areas. I teach the 8 areas, and essentially it's the same thing. So when we look at your life, there are basically 8 arenas. There's spirituality. And by the way, these arenas, 4 of them are internal, and then the other 4 are external. So the 4 that are external are what I call the outcome of what's internal. So what's internal? 4 areas: spirituality, health, family, and mental state, your mental state. These 4 are your internals. Now everything that happens in these 4 has a massive impact on what happens on the next 4, which are career, financial, social, and recreational. So you realize that these 4 are external, these 4 are internal. These 4 internals and the state of these 4 will affect these 4. That's amazing. And what causes these internal ones to be tumultuous or pacific? What causes that? You will find that it's this attitude thing we spoke about. So if these were the results and the behavior, then this would be the attitude. This would be the thinking and the feeling. So these, your thinking, your thoughts, your mindset, everything about what you are, the frames, this is what determines what the behavior will be like. So you will realize very quickly that your thoughts and feelings are impactful in a profound way. So the issue here is, what kind of thoughts do you have? And where do these thoughts and feelings actually come from? We have said it many, many times that thoughts and feelings come from your environment. What is it that you allow to go through your eye gate and your ear gate? Because these are the 2 main doors into your subconscious mind. The Bible says that if you want to take a hold of and have control over the house, you must first bind the strong man. And when you bind the strong man, then you have access to the house. Who is the strong man? I always tell people it's your subconscious mind. So Your attitude determines your altitude. Your attitude has a big impact on your behavior and your results. So remember, the foundational sequence that silently governs your outcomes is attitude, behavior, results. So if you are not happy with your results, and that's really what we've got to look at. If you're not happy with your results, then definitely you're going to go back to them. I'm coming to that in a moment. But let's examine the results. What do we mean when we talk about results? Well, it's simple. Let's go back to the 4. Spiritually, where are you standing? Now, I'm not going to go into that because then it ends up sounding like a religious thing. So let me just skip that for now, because let's focus on other things. So let's go to the next one. Health. What's your body like? How is your health, and how are you managing your health? You know, I gotta tell you, a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. Okay, so a healthy individual becomes wealthy. Simple. So if you are not able to manage your health well, it will have an impact on many things, including your capacity to earn, your capacity to perform, your capacity to be optimum in terms of what you do. But let's really go to the last 2, which I think are critical. Family. What kind of story are we seeing there? Is there a lot of acrimony? Is there a lot of pain, hurt, and drama? What's going on in your family? I will tell you, my brothers and sisters, that that will have an impact, massive impact, on exactly what goes on in your life, because your family is, for lack of a better word, your source of strength. Yes, we know and admit and acknowledge that God is the source of our strength, but God is invisible. And God works through physical people that we see around us. And if we really want to see God in the most profound way, we need to manifest Him first in our family. So what kind of situation do you have in your family? What's your family story? Is there a lot of pain and hurt? Are there traumas and hidden issues? What's going on there? Remember the law of correspondence. As you are on the inside, so will you be on the outside. And many times, if you see drama, pain, and hurt manifesting in the family space, just know there's a lot of dysfunction. Just know that the thoughts and feelings in those individuals is messed up. Why is it messed up? Because there's trauma and unresolved issues that have been sustained for a long period of time. And what these do, when trauma and unresolved issues are sustained for a long time, they are like seeds. But instead of them going and gestating in the mind, they go and fester. And when they fester, they cause rot. And when there's rot, that rot will infect everything around it. And that's why the outcome is wicked. You know, the Bible says, Jesus said, it is not what a man eats or that what goes into a man that defiles a man, but it's what comes out of a man. For an evil heart, out of it flows evil things. And a good heart, out of it flows good things. That's amazing. And by the way, did you know heart is synonymous with the subconscious mind? So let's go there. So in this seminar, in this webinar, we not only talk about that, we don't just talk about the fact that there's this root, but we look at what exactly goes on in the mind. So I'm going to give you a little lecture around the mind and how it works and the subconscious mind. And if you really want more data, like I keep saying, you've got to get yourself into the class. You've got to purchase it. It's now available at $350. You can just go purchase the class directly, one class, or you can go for the whole 5-day webinar, which is super loaded, which is 1,500 kwacha. I will post the link at the end of our session. Now, this attitude, the thinking and feeling, where do they come from? All right, to understand where they come from, we got to study what is called the PFC versus the limbic system. And that's exactly what the seminar covers as well. Now, the PFC is the prefrontal cortex. Okay, and then the limbic system is your subconscious mind. So in the prefrontal cortex, what's the function of the prefrontal cortex? It's basically your thinking brain. So this is your executive center. This is where everything that you make as far as a decision is concerned comes from. Then you've got the limbic brain. So remember that your PFC, prefrontal cortex, is your thinking brain. It is the future brain. It's the one that focuses on the future. Your limbic system is the subconscious mind. It is your emotional brain. So when you hear the Bible talk about the heart, it is referring to the subconscious mind. When you hear it talk about the mind, it's referring to the thinking brain or the prefrontal cortex or the conscious mind. So conscious, subconscious. Conscious mind, thought, thinking, thinking brain. Limbic system, subconscious, emotional brain. It is the now brain. So the subconscious is the now brain, the conscious is the future brain. You get it? So what you will realize, something that a lot of people don't actually realize, is just how powerful these work. So the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking brain, often loses the battle to your limbic system, the emotional brain. So meaning, where does it lose the battle? First and foremost, 95 to 97% of our waking lives is controlled by the subconscious mind. Can you believe that? That means, ladies and gentlemen, that in the 16 hours we are awake, because 8 hours we are asleep. So in the 16 hours we are awake, over 15 hours of that time is automated. It's on autopilot, being run by the subconscious mind. That's how powerful it is. Now, the interesting thing about the subconscious mind is that not only does it manage and run stuff, but it also determines by itself, together with its friend, which I call the Rastafari, which is the RAS. The RAS is the reticular activating system, a stem located at the back of your mind or brain, which basically determines and filters what's important and not important. This RAS in the beginning learns from you as it watches and observes you and how you react to the environment. And once it's learned what you tell it is important, then it will now govern how the subconscious mind deals with future data from the environment of the same nature. So it takes over and helps you to focus on what matters, because the conscious mind is not designed to process a lot of data. It can't process a lot of data at any given time. It processes between roughly 5 to 7, kilobytes, kilobytes of data a second. So 5 to 7 KBs of data a second. That's very, very limited, but very focused, very powerful, but limited. The subconscious mind, processes an average 40 megabytes of data a second. Now look at the difference. It's huge. It's a factor of 1 to almost 1 million. It's insane. So, in fact, let me think properly. It's not 1 to 1 million, because 1 megabyte is 1,000 kilobytes. So 7. So then 40. Yeah, it's quite a big. 1 to 100,000 factor. It's factor of 1 to 100,000. So the subconscious mind is far more powerful. And when you find yourself in situations it considers dangerous, it switches off your thinking mind and it goes into operation. That's why you hear people saying, I don't know what came over me. Yeah, your subconscious mind came over you, took over, and took hold of that situation. Now, many times the subconscious mind is skewed towards survival. And when it feels threatened, it behaves in a particular way. This, my friend, is the reason for the self-sabotage. So if you've ever wondered why, you start the year and you say all the positive words and you really believe that you're going to see a change, but it doesn't happen, I've just given you the answer. It's because your subconscious mind is tuned to threat survival. And where does this threat survival thing come from? It comes from the environment. It comes from whatever you face every day, whatever you hear every day on your social media feeds, on your news channels, whatever you read and whatever your neighbors tell you and whatever you hear around you all the time. That's what forms your world view. Now, the problem is that the RAS just learns, and once it's learned, it goes out there and it says we're taking over, and it takes over and starts to run things. So many times, you hear people saying, yeah, but we make all these positive confessions. Why don't we see them come to pass? Answer: because it is not in your control. It's in the RAS's control and your subconscious mind. And they really are very good at switching, the thinking mind off whenever you feel threatened. So that's where the threat response, kicks in. And that's why, hear me well, that's why trauma is very, very critical. And if trauma is not addressed, it will sabotage the rest of your life. So what is trauma exactly? Very simply put, guys, trauma is any event that is distressful. Anything that causes distress to you in your life, whatever it may be. What that does is it causes the mind to go into a state of shock. Not the mind, the subconscious mind, the thinking mind, the heart, to go into a state of distress and shock. And then, because it has to survive, it comes up with a coping mechanism internally. We call it survival templates. And once it comes up with a coping mechanism, that becomes your way of handling the trauma. Some people, the most common method is avoidance, very, very common. There's also denial. and then there is also defiance. But whatever the case, all these three aren't ideal ways to deal with trauma. What they do essentially is put you into a defensive loop, what we call implicit memory loop, an implicit memory feedback loop, which sets you in what we will call self-sabotage. Because you go into defense mode to defend yourself against that. And so even when opportunities for progress, like new love in your life, or new job, or new business venture come, your mind automatically switches back into this implicit memory of pain and defense and self-block. You block this thing because you don't want to go through the same hurt again. And what's so funny is at a conscious level, you want that thing, but subconsciously, you've already got bad hardwiring. So you're hardwired to reject that because it's considered a threat. Why is it a threat? Because it's similar to what happened to you in the past in the trauma. So for example, a common area everybody can understand is relationships. So if you've gone through a very terrible breakup, you tend to become defensive, you tend to become cautious. That caution is not good, because what it does is it actually blocks your mind from seeing and inviting new opportunities. If anything, you become so fearful of new opportunities, you never touch them, and that inevitably leads you to a place where you no longer see happiness. There's also another component which is very interesting around trauma, is that you could actually end up keeping on attracting the same people. What causes that? That is caused by a situation where when you were younger, you went through trauma from those you loved. And so your mind, in a warped way, took that traumatizing behavior as part of what it defines as love coming from people you care about. So, for example, the idea of being violent, being violently beaten up and things like that. You might probably find that people who keep going into violent relationships have had a past where their mother or dad was violent, and they witnessed that as a kid. And so in their minds, the imprint, the implicit memory is that love is connected to being beaten up. And so at a subliminal level, they look for people that subliminally remind them of that father figure or mother figure that was violent, or uncle, or whatever. And so at a subconscious level, they are attracted to such people. But at a conscious level, they are repulsed by such people. So it becomes a kind of internal, short circuit going on there. But because they are overwhelmed by their feelings of love, they override the cautionary part, and they end up going back again to individuals that have that kind of character trait, and so the cycle continues. Some people then, of course, will say it's generational curses, which, yep, I agree with. But generation, in the term, in the sense that it was modeled, it's something they saw it repeating over and over, and so they then get attracted to that individual, even though that individual is violent. And it's amazing. You see this pattern repeat over and over and over with people. And that's what the subconscious mind and the RAS can do. Now, I've just given an example of relationships where there's beating and violence, but this can apply to any area. This can apply to infidelity. This can apply to the inability to really flourish in a job or in an opportunity, because every time they get the opportunity to flourish, they don't, because they self-sabotage. They exhibit behavior which causes them to fail. It's literally like shooting yourself in the foot. So they don't realize why they keep getting into this very, very negative pattern, which causes them to reach a point where now they no longer can see those things that they wanted to see before. The opportunity to grow and go to the next level, they don't see that anymore. So why is that so? Because of what I've just said. So it's an amazing truth. In fact, this is one of the biggest truths as far as this webinar is concerned. And you see, one of the reasons that I take you through these lessons is to show you just how much bad programming actually stands in our way. I mean, when Jesus said, conquer the strong man, he wasn't kidding. The strong man inside of you and me. The strongholds. What is a stronghold? A stronghold is an ideology. Ideology aren't always just about science or religion. No. Ideology is any kind of knowledge that you've held on to within yourself. That's an ideology. So you'll be amazed how many people have really bad knowledge. When the Bible says, for our weapons of warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God, for pulling down every stronghold and capturing every thought, bringing them into captivity, every thought that raises itself against the knowledge of God. Do you see that? Lots of people think it's to do with demons in the air. No, it's the mind. Your greatest warfare zone, my dear brothers and sisters, is here. So what you learn in the environment over the years shapes and forms what we call a mindset. The terminology we use in neuropsychology is frames. So it forms a frame, and the frame is a container in which belief sits. And once belief's in there, it locks in. And beliefs are unwritten commands governing every decision, every choice you're making right now. So the choices you're making, if you're not happy with your choices, I can tell you the problem. The problem is your frames and your belief system. That's why in neuropsychology, in neuro-linguistic programming, the 3 keys to total transformation and change are: raise your standard. So in other words, completely break that frame you have and take the standards higher. Refuse to live at the level you're at. Go to the next level. And raising your standard means going into uncomfortable places, going into learning things that you're not happy with, challenging all your beliefs and things. That's not nice, but that's what raising your standards is. Then there is what? Change your belief system. This is the most powerful. This is the pivot as far as I'm concerned. And what I've showed you just now are examples of how belief systems can settle. And thirdly, change your strategy. So if you've been doing the same thing and you're not seeing any changes, that's insanity. So you need to change. So perhaps this is one of the strategies. Get onto this 5-day webinar and find a way in which you can truly bring transformation in your life, because perhaps that may be what's standing in your way. So this is what we learn. And these sessions go beyond theory, like I say. It's a practical, eye-opening journey into how your environment, your emotions, and internal questions literally shape identity and behavior. And by the way, internal questions, oh my God, we have a whole subject on asking powerful questions. You will not believe the kind of messed up internal conversations many people have with themselves. Very self-defeating. Oh, me, I'm just unfortunate. Why do bad things happen to me? Oh, no, things are just wrong. I don't care anymore. Why even try? All the time, everything never works out. Why do I always attract bad people? These are very self-defeating, extremely negative type of questions. And the problem is the subconscious mind is insane. Whatever the thinking mind tells it, it rushes to look for the answer. It rushes to look for that. Let me give you an example as I close. This is very profound. Haven't you noticed how many times you bump into people and they know you so well, they talk to you, they mention friends from the past, and you can tell they know you. They'll mention your family, they'll mention, and for the love of God, you're sitting there going, who is this person? Nothing, blank, blank, blank. You can't remember who they are. And so that's how that conversation finishes. Of course, being kind and being courteous, you want to pretend you know them, you just don't want to offend them. So you pretend like you know everything and remember everything. And then after they go, yeah, Michael, what's that? And then anyway, you forget. And then one day later, from out of the blue, boom, it all comes. Oh, that's my classmate. I remember him. Grade 12, where he was sitting just behind her, like all the data just comes. Yet, when they were talking to you, you couldn't remember a thing. That, my friends, is what the subconscious mind does. Even when you're no longer conscious about it, your subconscious mind is searching for the answer. So imagine if you tell your subconscious mind, me, I think I'm just bewitched. Someone must be bewitching me in the family. How come things are going wrong? Then you stop there. You even forget about your monologue about being bewitched. Guess what? Your subconscious mind is doing somersaults looking for the answer. Because for it, there's neither right or wrong, black or white. For the subconscious mind, everything is just data. And so if you go and ask a question like someone is bewitching me, believe me, the subconscious goes to look for the answer and it will find an answer. And you know what? That answer will be so wrong. But in your mind and in itself, it will believe that's correct. And that's how delusion comes about, my friends. That's how people start to go down paths that don't make any sense at all, because they are so self-defeating because of the kind of internal dialogue they have. So we will be dealing with that. We will be looking at, we give an eye-opening journey into how your environment, emotions, and internal questions shape your identity and behavior. Imagine that. You see, you walk away with tools to ask better questions, shift your filters, and engage life with renewed clarity. So if you've been listening to this as a recording or you're listening to it live, I'm going to post just now the details of how you can access the class and how you can pay for it. So I will be posting that just now. But from myself, adios, muchachos. You have a great day. Tomorrow, Dr. Sunshine is coming through with her program and mindset frame, mindset change. So take care of yourselves and have a great day.